And with that, I will go ahead and turn the mic over to Chesley. Chesley and I actually used to teach at the same school at Navarro College, based on depending on where you live and how you pronounce it, teaching art appreciation. And while there, Chesley started teaching online, which really intimidated me, and I felt like I didn't want to do it. And it turned out to be a great move for longevity for Chesley there. And she's often said that she actually really likes the format, which is why I went to Chesley when we were looking at having this program, because if you have something positive to say about it, that's means you're probably doing something right. So Chesley, you want to take over?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I guess I'll just start with sharing my screen and go from there. Okay, and then probably minimize this maybe. Okay, so thanks for the introduction. Again, my name is Chesley Antoinette Williams. I go by Professor Williams for my students. I use Antoinette for my, as an artist name. But anywho, so first of all, thanks for joining. And I'm, excited to be able to share some of my practices with you all. As Adrienne was saying, yes, I've been teaching online since 2016. Started off face-to-face and then transitioned into online teaching and been doing it ever since. And so one thing that I want to acknowledge as far as before I get into these sort of like teaching tips on just how to engage students more through an online platform is, obviously since mid-March, many of us in higher education relating to colleges and universities and even K through 12, if not already had to transition fully online for art courses. And so this clearly continues to be the case, and that we are all teaching either a lecture or studio art courses online. And both of these situations have produced a plethora of articles that directly relate to online / remote teaching. There's even private Facebook groups that have been created to offer tips and share ideas on strategies to help have a more successful course using various software apps and learning management systems. In addition, our workplaces have been providing professional development for online teaching, and instructional designs have been created on our behalf. So what's really not meant to be my first tip, but kind of is because I'm mentioning it first, is that hopefully, we are being diligent and tapping into those resources, like you're already doing here locally with the Cedars Union, but then also institutionally wise. So in general, hopefully also you're staying updated about your profession from a local, regional, and national viewpoint that can help you predict and stay ahead career-wise. Like Adrienne mentioned earlier, there was an opportunity for me to start teaching online back in 2016, and I took that opportunity, and it has worked out pretty well for me so far. For the past 6 years, I've been able to find, consistent teaching work that, works out. So my presentation will focus on observations and practices that I've used when it comes to online teaching. And, so like perhaps many of you after graduate school began teaching as an adjunct art professor. Main courses that I taught and still teach today is art appreciation. That's the bread and butter there. In fact, I've taught, over 72 plus art appreciation courses since 2014. I started off again face-to-face and then transitioned. In addition, I also teach design courses face-to-face. And then since mid-March, I had to transition those courses online as well. And so on average, I teach about 18 courses a year through 3 different colleges. And so I will go ahead and apologize for referencing lecture courses more than I do my studio design courses. However, I think the principles remain the same. Okay, moving on to my actual slideshow, if I can. If it wants to cooperate. Oh, there we go. Okay, so content. So your course can be as engaging from content you seek and the way that you choose to apply it. You're obviously, I think personally that it's all about the content that you provide to your students, even if it comes to face-to-face or online, which online platforms offer so much more opportunity to share so much additional content, even if it's not being used for assessment purposes, but it's basically like you're building an entire website for students to be able to scroll through and access additional information that goes beyond, at least those that want to seek it, they have an opportunity to find it within your course. And so, content is incredibly important, and I think is the #1 thing to deal with when it comes to developing and engaging courses for students in an online platform. And so I have a few tips on how to obtain that content. And the first one is to know your audience, which would be your students. I suggest developing some type of unofficial survey at the beginning of the course to understand their professional aspirations and in general what they want out of the course. I would even go a step further and ask, why they may or may not think taking that particular course. For me, it's art appreciation, and whether it aligns with their professional goals or not. And so I usually do this through a syllabus contract, an email instructor assignment is what I call it, where the students are directly emailing me with an attachment that explains to me, not only do they understand the course policies, but in addition, they're letting me know what their majors are and what they expect out of the course and, their overall aspirations. And so when you have this information, it allows you to think about and research the type of content that you want to include into your course that can help engage those students. And then it also allows you to act in real time. So if you are getting, several similar responses, especially as it relates to what they're seeking out of the course, and perhaps you didn't include that, or maybe you want to include more of that, again, those responses allow you to develop your course even further in real time. And so one thing I've noticed with my art appreciation courses is that the majority of my students are coming from the medical industry. I get a lot of nurses, mostly nurses, physical therapists, and a wide range of other types of students as well. And so ideally, when I'm looking for content that still aligns, with the subject matter, I'm looking for things and how art is being related to the medical industry to help keep those students engaged throughout the course. And I'll offer more sources later on in the presentation to go along with that. So the second tip I would suggest when it comes to, again, trying to figure out how to develop content for your courses to keep students engaged is understanding teaching goals versus district goals. District goals are those student learning outcomes. They're universal to courses throughout the state of Texas, no matter the institution, especially as it relates to core curriculum courses. And so like our appreciation, student learning outcome would include evaluating works of art using art terminology. However, you want to develop your own teaching goals. In fact, you should consistently, hopefully, remind yourself by writing these down and reviewing your teaching philosophy. This will help you, maintain your love and passion for teaching, as well as help your students, want to engage in the course and suggest the course, to other students as well. And so oftentimes your teaching goals may overlap with the district. However, you should consider making them more direct in what you're teaching and your professional achievements that you're seeking when you're engaging with students. And so again, when you understand who is in your course and what their professional goals are and what they're seeking, this will then help you develop what your teaching goals are for that particular course. And so I've listed, some examples of my teaching goals for, particularly for art appreciation. And so some of that includes, using the subject of art to improve observational and communication skills that can be applied to any profession. As I said, when having taught art appreciation for so many years and times, I have come to the conclusion, or not come to conclusion, but it has become evident that over 90% of the students that I teach are non-art majors. And so, my approach is going to be different than, speaking with art students, people that are genuinely wanting to, seek a career within the creative industry. These students are not seeking that. And so, however, I want to be able to offer them tangible skills that they can walk away from having taken my course, that they can apply to whatever profession that they're seeking. I also want to argue against the myth of a starving artist. A lot of these individuals, they look down on the arts and they don't consider it a successful profession to go into. And so, I want to, change their mindset when it comes to that. I want to prove to them that, arts is a viable career path. It just all depends on what your plan is and how you plan on executing it. And then overall, I want them to incorporate arts into their lifestyle choices. I want to help produce future philanthropists and art advocates, because it's those students, these non-art majors that make up, on the school boards, your politicians, your legislators, running for, any sort of public office, human resources. Those are the people that oftentimes make up the majority when it comes to sustaining arts within a community. And so this is an opportunity for me to try and connect with those non-art major students and hopefully getting them to incorporate the arts within their personal and professional lifestyles. And then for my studio classes, slightly differs. I think it's really important, especially, those of us that are practicing artists, like we're continually making work, we're showing that work, we're involved in the art community in some way or form, that we think back to what our path was when it came to, going to school. So for instance, I started off at my local community college, and then moved on to a four-year university, and then later on went to graduate school. And my first class was a sculpture class at the community college level, and it was a great experience. I don't remember my professor's name, but she had an incredible impact on me. First off, as far as where the campus was located, it was near walking distance where the gallery that she attended or was represented by that we frequent. She also lived in the area and knew a lot of local artists and organizations that she could make connections with and get us in touch where we could do like volunteer work. We could just, further our ability to engage with the arts at a very young age through that community college local experience. And as great as that was, that experience unfortunately still lacked, things that I thought is lacking in general in the studio arts, higher education setting. And so two things was, economics, business, and then realistic, diverse, creative professional career paths. It's not nearly talked enough about how to make a living, a sustainable living, nor is it talked enough, the different types of diverse creative paths that exist within the creative fields. There's more than just becoming a teacher when it comes to art. And so for my studio courses, I want to help students improve, what I felt that I lacked during my college experience. So, think back to what you lacked in your college experience and how that can become part of your teaching goals. And it will determine the content that you produce to keep your students engaged, both face to face and online. And so one of that was improving writing skills. I hated writing, I hated mathematics. But if I, was encouraged to practice it more, I could have gotten over that fear a lot quicker. Introduce local resources outside of college that can help boost career goals. Think about places where students can do internships, just, expose themselves more, understand, the field that they're seeking and how to find a mentor, all those things are really important. And then discuss, of course, the diversity of success within the creative professions. Again, this will all lead you towards developing rich content to help keep your students engaged. And then tip number 3, research open source materials and content that aligns with your teaching goals and students' known and unknown desires. So you want to consistently be looking for materials. And one way is, subscribing to various types of newsletters that interest you. For instance, I recently subscribed to the North Texas Business Arts Council, and they have been doing some really interesting webinars, particularly as it relates to North Texas healthcare, aligning themselves with various types of arts. So for instance, the webinar was over Parkinson's disease and how art through repetition was helping those types of patients. And so, I'm able to then use that material into my courses and engage the students that are primarily seeking degrees in the medical profession that can keep them engaged. And so you can really help set the tone of your course in the very beginning based on how you describe the course and also, what materials that you start to introduce your students to. You definitely want to go beyond the mandated textbook. You of course want to use the textbook, but the textbook oftentimes doesn't allow you to fulfill your teaching goals, but they definitely fulfill the district goals. Um, and so let's see. Here's an example of an artist, or not really an artist, but a mentor that I like is Amy Herman. She has I start my courses off like this every semester. That's worked for me for the past 4 or 5 semesters, how art can help you analyze as a discussion. And I get students to talk about how they are currently applying their analytical and observational skills with their future or potential or current profession. And when they start to write that out, it starts to make some connections in how taking an art appreciation course and working on those skills, but using art as the subject matter can still be very beneficial for them. And so they become more engaged and more excited. And, the resentment starts to go away. I definitely noticed some resentment in the beginning, especially when I'm asking those questions. I'm doing like that unofficial survey, and I don't blame them. I would hate to have to take a course, and I have, and let alone pay for it, and not know, how it's going to benefit me, or basically think that it's not going to benefit me, and I have to find out later. And sometimes it still isn't very clear at the beginning of the semester. Sometimes it only makes sense later on, but really I think that if you're going to have a product that a student has to purchase, you ought to be able to thoroughly explain to them what this product is at the very beginning and tell them how it's going to help them in the real world marketplace, how it's going to be applied. These tangible skills are going to be applied to them being successful and how employers can use students like them, or not students, but future employees like themselves that take art appreciation courses and work on these types of skills. And so my fourth tip, I didn't mean to play that. Let's see here. There we go. Um, my fourth tip is to find creative ways to incorporate all of this content that you're building. So basically, you're building your own library of content to share somehow, some way with your students. There's discussion boards. There's obviously test projects. There's quizzes. There's blogs. There's group activities. Those are some of like the most basic ways, and you know. ways that you interact with students when it comes to an online platform. It's going to be through those major, categories. And so, however, you can still engage with them with all of this resource of library materials that you brought up, or you put together, um, and it doesn't necessarily have to be quizzed or test over, but it's at least there for them to access and for you to be able to reference to them whenever you are having an opportunity to have like one-on-one sessions with them. So for instance, when I'm doing like the instructor email assignment and they're emailing me back their syllabus contract and I'm responding to them, not only that I've received it, but hey, welcome to the course. So I'm able to see like what their um, profession that they're seeking is, and also I'm able to read the response, like whether they think this course aligns with their goals or not. And then I'm able to like link articles or link videos that can help persuade them to change their viewpoint, or at least become more open-minded into how they plan on approaching this course and finishing it out. And so an example of that would be like a recommended read section. I categorize it by general industries, medical science, political science, education, business, public safety, and that allows me to again reference it for the student, and then also for the student to find it on their own as they are navigating throughout the course. I also even do like an Instagram category where I'm just constantly adding different Instagram artists that I like, and then also that sometimes the students suggest to me, and just again building that up as well. My fifth tip would be to build a library of feedback responses. And so, just for one school that I teach for, where they put like 40 students in an art appreciation course online. So, I tend to get like 3 sections. So that's like 120 students. There's 3 tests. You multiply that, that's like 480 items at bare minimum that I have to grade that particular semester for that district. And so you can't just do, multiple choice questions when it comes to assessments. There's got to be a bit more to that, especially if you're going to try and like engage students and have them walk away and fulfill your teaching goals for them. And so building a library of feedback responses that are very thoughtful. At one point in time, you took a lot of time to, write that thoughtful feedback for them. However, I can't do that for, 200 plus students. It's just not feasible. Um, so I do a lot of copy and pasting, and I can edit and change that up a little bit, however, usually you will notice as an educator, as you're grading, that students tend to fall into categories, and you are oftentimes repeating yourself when it comes to doing any type of like feedback or what they're not getting right or what they are getting right. And so your library can start to build as far as your feedback according to that particular assignment. And so this is a great way to again, engage with your students and make them feel like, they're not just a number, and that you are really taking your time and you are thoroughly going through their assignments, and that you're offering them feedback that is not only constructive, but, that can also like, really help them move forward in the course, and also, again, walk away with tangible skills that they can apply later on.
Hey, Chesley, we got a question about that from Elizabeth Trosper. She was wondering how you search, index, and deploy your library of feedback. Sorry to be like a floating voice interrupting
No
you.
worries. No worries. So I just have a Word document. So, of course, I'm using rubrics and I'm importing those rubrics using whatever learning management system, whether that's Blackboard or Canvas. And so within that learning management system, you have it to where there's a section where you can offer written feedback. And so I would just go to like my Word document and, I just organize it in that way. And then I just copy and paste it that feedback in. I still have to manually copy and paste it. It's not an automatic thing. I don't know if that answers your question. I saw something else pop up. I don't want to touch anything because I don't want my presentation to go away, but you can let me know that.
She said that's good. Thank you.
Okay. Um, yes. All right. So my sixth tip would be to review your student evaluations and assignment responses, particularly the comments, in order to measure whether you are reaching your goals or not, and of course, adjust. It's really important that you are soliciting students, encouraging them to do the end of course student evaluations. I bribe them. I give them 5 points towards their final letter grade for them to complete the student evaluation and show proof of it. Because it is that feedback that is ultimately going to help you and help future students, when it comes to your courses. It takes a while to get, students to, I guess just to get good responses, like I love this one response, um, this girl was dreading the course and she needed to complete it for graduation. So obviously it was mandated. It was like she had to. And I was able to offer her, valuable insight, and she learned more than she ever thought she was. And she appreciated the way that the class was delivered. Those types of responses ultimately help me see that, okay, I am fulfilling my teaching goals. And even the bad responses that I get can also help me understand that I'm not reaching my teaching goals and that I need to make, reasonable adjustments. You can obviously defer between constructive criticism and just, people just being disgruntled. It's another reason why you want to like really encourage, student evaluations, because you don't want the disgruntled evaluations to outweigh the very few, ones that want to volunteer to do the course or to do the evaluation. So again, if you encourage them and even bribe them, you're more than likely to get some really constructive feedback to see if you are, fulfilling your goals. And then my last tip is to edit. It's really important to go back and edit, no matter how good you think, that particular assignment was. You could always go back and edit like those objectives and make it even more clear. Like one of my goals is to have the least amount of questions, and not because, I've intimidated them to where they don't want to ask me questions, but that, the assignment is so clear. I've given such great examples that, there's no questions to be asked. It's just a matter of submitting the work itself. Um, and then that leaves room for them and for us to have other discussions in the course, instead of going over like, small little details. And so, by editing, your online course like all the time, you can, make sure that those details are very clear, and then it allows you to, further build, because, you're not going to do all of this in one semester. You're not going to do all of it in 1 year. It takes, time. That's one thing that I like about art appreciation, is the opportunity to be able to constantly teach the same course. That's that form of repetition. It doesn't, I don't get tired of it, because I'm always, trying to find ways to make it better for myself, fun, and then also fun for the student. Again, I'm all about them, not being resentful, having to take my course simply because, it's on their degree plan. I want them to honestly walk away with a great experience. And so I'm going to do my part and try and, edit. And so I think a really great way to engage with students is through announcements. I do 3 announcements a week, Mondays, as an overview, Friendly Friday reminders, and then I do Inspirational Wednesdays announcements where I am incorporating some type of, you know, uh, artists that whose materials relate to that week's topic, whether it's like drawing, printmaking, sculpture, whatever, um, or maybe it's just an article, you know, about the arts and particular field, or maybe it's a nonprofit that is dealing with the arts, but some type of like additional content I'm providing them that is outside of the textbook that they ordinarily probably would not come across. And so when you're constantly, like, again, when I say when you're constantly doing all this editing and your weekly announcements, because a lot of that stuff is also copied and pasted from semester to semester, but it allows you, again, opportunity to tweak it and make it even better and make it even more creatively interesting. So recently I've started in my Friday announcements where I would only, have a section of the calendar in that announcement that reminds them of what is, about to be due in the next 2 days on a Sunday. I've started now incorporating artwork into there, into that section. And then for my design courses, my studio courses, I've started incorporating previous student artwork into those announcements, on the current projects that we're working on. And so even though I have like a folder of previous student artwork examples, they're probably going to visit that folder like maybe once or twice. But, there's the project, they have like 3 weeks to work on it. And so here's an opportunity for me to, use content, that's created by students already in order to, keep those students further engaged. Um, so those are my tips. Again, it's really about your content ultimately, you know, how much effort you're putting into going beyond just the mandated textbook. And then, understanding the students that are taking your courses and really trying to be relatable to them will help them and help you have a really successful course and just overall, have fun at what you're doing. And so I've listed a few resources that I've used currently. And, they're all types, so there's like the Healthcare Design Magazine, which focus on like interior design when it comes to incorporating public works of arts inside of hospitals. And then it also goes in and talks about, it has various different types of articles for people, for you to like, be able to look through and see how it may or may not can, relate to your course or maybe to a different student that happens to be in healthcare and medicine. UT has a great program, Art and Medicine. They have one course, I think it's called Artist as the Patient, where, they are, encouraging people in the medical field to study art in order to help out with their diagnostic skills, their ability to observe and analyze and ask, thoughtful questions. I talked about, the North Texas Business Council for the Arts and their webinars. They're great. Now, some of this stuff is for you and not necessarily for your student, because sometimes you can just like pick up information that you can, somehow figure out how to incorporate, but maybe it's not like the whole entire, content that that particular source is offering. So for an example, I came across this article by the American Medical Association, the use of fine art to enhance visual diagnostic skills. And I signed up for the newsletter for SMU, their global something program, where they're offering non-credited courses in all different types of subject matters. They range from like, one day to like, maybe 2 weekends. They're $50 and up. And again, the subject matter is and a variety of it. And so one of the things they had were advertising is how studying art can boost your brain by 10%. And then they linked this article. And so from there, I followed it and I came across this article. I'm like, oh man, this is a fantastic article to use. And so I've now started incorporating on my Wednesday inspiration is, hey, did you know studying art can boost your brain by 10%? And then I link that article and then I add additional, like, you know, tell them about a different artist or whatever, but I'm always constantly repeating myself because repetition is how we learn, about how art can boost your brain by 10%. And so, I think, again, making sure that you are constantly on the search, on the hunt for content that can enhance your course, will make it fun for you and much more beneficial for your students. Economics is always a good thing to talk about, arts and economic prosperity. I also have like Econ Lab at the bottom of the resource page. They offer, articles and, graphs, real studies. Arts is, makes up 4% of the GDP here in the U.S. And that's a huge, that's billions of dollars. And so, I think that's really important information for your students to know about, especially when it comes to planning out whatever their creative industry career may be, or also convincing non-art majors that, the arts is a viable career choice. For the Love of Art is a nonprofit here in Dallas that does like art books, digital art books for people who have mobility issues that are like in assisted living situations. And so they've partnered with, a lot of the local museums to put together these art books that healthcare workers can use and visit these individuals that are not mobile and share, art. And they have volunteer positions, and and so it's just a great thing to again offer your students that are just looking for ways to engage locally. And then I've listed other stuff as well. Recently the Dallas Art Fair has created like the cultural place where they've listed all of like the local or galleries that are participating with them. I recently got an email from a student in which they are enjoying the course and they want to know how they can come across or find local art galleries and purchase artwork. And so, it's really good to have like sources like Glass Tire or even this cultural place where there's already a list for me that I can just simply share with a student rather than having to like, develop my own list. Yeah, that pretty much ends my presentation and how to engage students more. Again, it's just all about content and understanding who's in your course and who you're serving. And take any other questions.
Thank you, Chelsea. Chesley. I keep running. My sister-in-law is called Chelsea. I keep messing that up. Does anyone have any questions? I know I have a couple, but I'd love to get yours first. If okay, we got some popping up in the chat. Oh, there's a thank you. Thank you. Chesley, do you ever do lectures where you're recording yourself giving the lecture, like with voice, or do you mostly post them for the students to go through them?
Yeah, no, I tried that once, and the feedback that I got was, no, don't do that.
Yeah. Okay. I know a lot of people are struggling with that, and it also takes a lot more time.
It's very, very, very time consuming. And then you also have to think if you're constantly trying to update your materials, you can't go back and just do all those voice recordings. That's just not like an efficient way with your time. But what you can do is be very thorough in your presentation lectures. There's a lot of text, not just images, but a lot of text to explain myself to help a student, get things across. So yeah, I don't
Yeah.
video.
Like in the past, when I've taught studio classes or art appreciation, um, it's funny because my PowerPoint presentations when I'm lecturing live are just slides, no information. And so
Mhm.
when I taught an online art history course, I was like, oh no, my entire style is based off of like ad-libbing live. And it just took a lot more organization, which I know a lot of teachers are having to like do on the fly and do kind of halfway for one group All sorts of methods are being used this year for delivering information, but yeah, having the slides, and then I don't know. But I also found the same, that when I tried to record the lectures, it just did not work.
Yeah, no. And then, like I said, like things are always changing. And so, and then plus I teach for 3 different districts. And so, you obviously want to make that personal. And so, how is that going to be personable if you're having to redo all of those? And then, oh, okay, now I got to input this college name. Now I have to input this college name. And so, yeah, it's just not a really sufficient way to work.
Mm-hmm. Um, Liz is asking any tips for staying organized. That's always a big life question there.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Staying organized. Folders, digital folders. Honestly, once you do like build a course online, because I've taught 16-week, 12-week, 8-week, 5-week, and most recently I've done a 15-day 3 Maymester course. And so once you built those courses already, it's kind of like laid out for you, like all your announcements, all your folders. And so you can just like copy and paste things over. And so the only thing that you're really keeping organized with is your lectures, your slides, your feedback. And so, just folders, digital folders, labeling.
And a lot of these teachers, I think, that are now teaching online, it's more of a temporary commitment. And I know that, like, your first semesters on an online course is always going to be a lot heavier work. One thing to keep in mind is, like, if resources already exist on the internet, you
Mm-hmm.
can you can summarize them and give them back to your students, but you also can kind of like put it in their hands to do the research. So maybe you're focusing on a slideshow of artists for one assignment you're giving in a studio art class. Instead of having a slide of the photo and then a slide of information you've compiled, if you're short on time, you can also link it to another article, or somewhere else they might get that same information.
Oh,
um,
absolutely. Even like when it comes to like, photographing your work, I didn't do a video on photographing work. I found a really good YouTube video that can show students how to photograph their work, and, submit the assignment appropriately. So yeah, there's a lot of resources out there that you shouldn't be afraid of to incorporate simply because you're not the original owner. These are open source materials, they're for that particular purpose. And so, it's just, I like what Liz says. So work smarter.
yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, if there's no more questions, we'll go ahead and close out. Chesley, that was great. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your tips. I'm hoping that everybody kind of comes out of this very nimble way of planning courses with things that they'll take away with them forever. So don't forget to be positive, everybody, and have a good evening.
Yeah. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Bye.